first of all, I need to apologise for all people who think that I'm going to be live on YouTube yeah, at 6 o'clock. For some reason, everything went belly up. Okay, I don't know exactly what went wrong, but rest assured, now we are live. Okay, so I'm definitely live, and I'm doing a Q&A. I'm doing a Q&A. I thought I would do one. I hope you can hear me. Let me know if you can hear me. So put a note in the bottom there, and I'll see that. So I know, so to speak. So a couple of days ago, I asked a question. I said, should I do a Q&A? And what questions would you like to ask? And I'm just picking up my phone here, so I'm going to try and find the questions. Somebody wrote in and he asked a whole list of questions. He said, that'd be a show in its own right, and I agreed with him. It certainly is. So what I'm going to do is, if I can find those questions, which I will do at any moment now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through those questions, right, in the community. Here we are. I found them, and there's quite a few of them. How can I open this now? Open. 3 replies. There we go. I finally got it open, and yeah, this guy asked a lot of questions. So I thought I would do this. I would do this live. For some reason, there we are. I was just checking the camera and hoping everything's okay. You can see Grogu behind me here. Grogu. I hate it when people call him Baby Yoda. It's not Baby Yoda. He is Grogu. So, as I say, got a whole load of questions here on the phone, and well, until somebody says anything or asks a question live here on chat, so you can ask me anything, I'm going to go through some of these questions here. Okay. Good evening. Oh gosh, I can't pronounce your name. I think that may be Russian. Phonetic Russian, so I don't know what your name is, but good evening. What's going on? I will tell you what's going on. I'm doing a Q&A, live Q&A. So tell me if you can hear me. I hope you can hear me okay, alright? Let me know. I'm pretty sure that you can hear me. Let me just check. Yeah, that would appear to be okay. I'm just going to turn that up a little bit, and let me know if you can hear me clearly, okay? So, as I say, there was a number of questions asked, and I'm just going to open up my phone again. And this was Richard, a member called Richard, and he asked a load of questions, and he said this could be a show in its own right. So yeah, here we go. So when did you first get into simming? Well, gosh, that's got to be 25, 30 years ago now, I think, around about that. And I'll tell you exactly when. It's got to be 25 to 30 years ago, I'm going to say, and I got into simming. A friend of mine, he had a computer. I didn't have a desktop computer at that time, but a friend of mine had a desktop computer, and one of his favourite games was Civilization, the very first one by Sid Meier, and he also had something called Secret Weapons of the Luftwaffe, which was by Microprose, which was a military combat sim. And I used to go to his house, and I would play for hours on Civilization, and I would play for hours on Secret Weapons of the Luftwaffe. And Secret Weapons of the Luftwaffe had terrible graphics by today's standard. It was terrible, but it was really good fun, and that was kind of how I first got into simming. Not long after that, I got my own computer, and my very first 2 computer games was Darklands. Right, you can't hear anything. You should be able to hear. Why is that now? We turn that on? Alright, let me know if you can hear now. Alright, you should be able to hear perfectly well. What I don't want is for you to hear things twice, okay? So let me know if you can hear now, and if that's been the case, then I'll have to start everything again and say everything again. Okay, Rodriguez, yeah, if you could let me know if you can hear me now, Rodriguez. Okay, so do hope you can. Otherwise, it's going to be a bust, and I'm going to have to reconfigure everything and start again, which I don't really want to. I'm really hoping that you can hear me. I've got everything turned on. Microphone's turned on. Everything is turned on now, so you should hear me. Please let me know if you can. If you can't, well, I'll tell you what I'll do. I'll type in here. Can you hear me now? There we go. And we'll see what happens. If it fails, then I'm going to have to reconfigure everything again. But it should work fine. It should work fine. I'm just waiting for a response here. There's two people watching. And let me know if you can hear me, okay? I'm still waiting for an answer. Can you hear me? Can you hear me? No, nobody's answering. They must be on the other side of the world somewhere. And if this doesn't work, this is really strange. Which means that I'll have to record this instead of going live, which will be really annoying. Because as far as I'm concerned, everything should be fine. Hey, Matt, can you hear me, Matt? Tell me. No, I'm not doing that. Let me turn that off. Shall I use this mic instead of that one? What do you reckon? Can you hear? Oh, well, you know what I'm going to say, don't you? I'm going to say. Can you hear this now? Right, you can hear this now. Please tell me you can, Matt. Brilliant. Right, now I can start again. I just don't know what's going on today. It's been one of those days. Right, what I'll do is I'll mute that now so I don't hear it twice. And you should still be able to hear me. Okay. Right, I've got to find my questions again now that I had up. Go to my channel, your channel, here we go, because all my questions were on here in community. Okay, got them. Right, so the first question was, when did I first get into simming? And I was saying, it was about 25-30 years ago. A friend of mine had a computer. I didn't have a computer at that time, but he had a computer, and the game that he had on there was Secret Weapons of the Luftwaffe, which was by Microprose. It was pretty, by today's standards, it was awful graphically, but back then it was really good fun. And so that's how I first got into simming. You couldn't even really call that simming. It was just, it was like a military battle game, which was, as I say, the graphics were dreadful. If I could find an image of it, I'd post it, but it was really difficult. And then I got my own computer, and the first two games I bought for my computer were there was a role-playing game called Darklands and X-Wing Alliance. So even then, I wasn't into simming. But very quickly, I then got into military sims, and I had things like AV-8B Harrier jump jet, and then Jane's F-15, Microprose F-117A, and a couple of other military sims, all of which were really good for the time. But if you look at them now, the graphics were absolutely appalling. But back then, they were good fun, and so you did it. Oh, there was another one I had as well that was made by a UK company, and that was Tornado, which was really good for its time. Anyway, so that's how I first got into simming, and the reason why I got into simming, I suppose, was that I always had a love of aviation, and one of the other questions is what made you interested in aviation, and ever since I was a kid, and I mean a young kid, I was always interested in space flight, technology, and that was because of my dad. My dad was an electronics engineer. He was very, very clever, and together we followed the space race between the Americans and the Russians. And I saw men land on the moon in 1969, so I was always kind of aware of science, of aviation, of the space race. So one naturally leads on to the other. And so I've always been interested in aviation. I've flown on. I'm not going to say all over the world, but I've been to many, many places around the world, in all sorts of aircraft: Airbus, Boeing, 737, 757, 76, Dreamliner, 747. I've been on the Airbus A320, Airbus A380. I haven't been on a 340 or a 330. I would like to fly on those. So I've travelled extensively, and I love flying. It doesn't bother me flying. Some people get really scared of it, but yeah, I love it. Don't forget, if you want to ask me a question, just type it in the chat. I can see the chat here. Ask me a question, and I'll try and answer it the best possible way. Ask me anything you want. And it doesn't have to be about flying or simming, and so therefore, the next question was the guy who wrote all these questions, Richard. He wanted to know he wanted to know a little bit about me, in terms of what kind of career I had in the past, and where I've lived. So as many of you know, I'm retired. I've been retired a number of years. I was very lucky to be able to retire early. But my career for 35 years was in local government. I worked in local government. I was a qualified social worker working with young people who were in care of the local authority. I did that for 7 years, and then the remainder of my career, I was a training and development officer, and so therefore I would train staff. So my working week was 5 days a week, but of the 5 days, 4 of them I would be stood up in front of people training, teaching, and lecturing. I did that for quite some time. Somebody's just asked me if I like Fortnite. This is the normal question that comes up whenever I do something like this. No, I do not like Fortnite. End of story. Do I support a constitutional monarchy? Yes, I do. So we'll leave it at that. I've been to a royal garden party in Buckingham Palace. I do support a constitutional monarchy. I am not a Republican. I'm a monarchist. So we'll leave that at that. So that was my kind of career from the age of like 30 something, or from the age of 26 until retirement. I worked in social services. Previous to that, I was a DJ, and I worked in a number of clubs in the northwest of England, and then I also lived in Corfu as well, because somebody wanted to know if I'd lived in Corfu, lived abroad, and I lived in Corfu for a couple of years, DJing there as well. Which was great fun. Not only was I a DJ, I was a DJ at night, but I was a water ski instructor during the day. So yeah, I had great fun and thoroughly enjoyed myself for a good number of years. And then I went to university and became a social worker. I got a degree in sociology and a PhD in sociology and deviance, and I've also got a master's in business. So yeah, kind of went a bit mad with the education stuff, but yeah, not bad. Considering I left school with no qualifications whatsoever, I kind of did everything later in life. Um, um, right, I'm just looking through the comments there. No need to respond to any of those. Um, what does your home sim setup office look like? Well, I could show you by pulling the camera around, but my desk is a little bit untidy at the moment, so I'm not going to bother. But what I will tell you is I've got a 3-screen setup. So I've got um, two 19-inch screens, square screens left and right, but in the centre I've got a 32-inch high def um, Samsung monitor, and that's my main kind of simming monitor, which is the 32-inch. Beautiful monitor. It's a curved monitor, lovely. 2560 by 1440, I think. I can't remember the exact resolution of it, but it is lovely, lovely monitor. Um, in fact, if I do this, bear with me 1 second. If I do this, I'll just move myself out of the way. There you go. You can see my screensaver there. So yeah, that is a really nice monitor, and it does the job perfectly well. In terms of equipment, then, so my PC is getting a little bit old at the moment, by any standard. So it's a i7-4770K processor with 32 gig of RAM and an NVIDIA GTX 1080 graphics card. So some might say it's getting a little bit old. It serves me perfectly well. I can stream, I can edit videos, I can fly my sim, play most games on it, no problem at all. Call of Duty, everything like that online, yeah, no problem at all. If anything, if I was to do anything, I'd probably upgrade the graphics card a little bit, but yeah, it's doing well. In terms of equipment, peripherals, I use a Cytec X52 flight controller, which is a throttle on the left hand side, and on the right hand side is a joystick. Altogether, I can't remember how many buttons it's got. It's got a lot of buttons. In fact, I probably could count them. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 times 3 makes 21, and then on the throttle, so it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 times 3, which is 24. So 21 and 24 is 45. So altogether there's 45 buttons, because I can use three different profiles. What's on my wish list? Matt has asked what is on my wish list for X-Plane. Right, and also Richard, who wrote a lot of questions, he asked that as well. He wanted to know what was on my wish list. What's on my wish list for X-Plane? What is on my wish list is that Laminar do look after the clouds better. The weather system, the weather engine of X-Plane is actually very, very good, but where it fails is the actual depiction of that weather, and so we find that we're constantly looking at new weather engines and new weather sets. So like we've got XMViro, Ultra Weather XP, SkyMax Pro, there's quite a few others as well, but I can't remember that. And so those are textures. Oh, Active Sky for XP, and there's a couple of others as well that I can't remember. So not only do we have cloud sets or cloud textures, we've also got weather engines. So SkyMax Pro has something called Real Weather Connector. There's FSGRW. There's a couple of others as well. And in fact, the whole thing about weather and clouds in X-Plane is really getting quite complex and convoluted, and it would be really nice to see Laminar take that aspect of X-Plane on and actually produce their own weather set, their own weather clouds, and really kind of ramp that up. every other area of X-Plane at the moment is absolutely spot on. You know, the flight dynamics, scenery can be really well enhanced by things like Orbex or Auto for XP. But the weather, that's something that they really do need to work on. I suppose some people would say, you know, better optimization of resources as well. Um, it, it's, for example, you can put an add-on in. You can put a small add-on in to X-Plane, and it will have a significant impact on FPS. Or you could put in a large add-on, or a large add-on could be made. It has no impact on FPS because of the way the developer has made it. And a good example of that is Better Pushback. Better Pushback is a standalone product. You don't install it into X-Plane as such. It installs outside of X-Plane, but it works inside X-Plane. It has no impact on FPS. As far as I'm aware, it's not a huge program in terms of how big it is, but what it does for the simulator is beyond measure. It really changes everything about it and makes it look so good. Sarah Everard Gaming says, have you met Bob Sidwick? Yes, Bob Sidwick was a very close friend of mine. Unfortunately, he passed away, and I was told recently that he actually passed away 2 years ago. I didn't think it was that long, but we just had the second anniversary of his passing. So yes, I did meet Bob Sidwick, a very close personal friend of mine. We used to fly together in his plane, and you know, a sad loss to the community. What are your favourite sim add-ons and apps and mods? What are my favourite sim add-ons and apps and mods for X-Plane? Okay, well, this is really simple. Better Pushback. Better Pushback, hands down, is like in the top 5. Always has been, always will be. I can't say any more about it because it's just superb. It works. I've only ever had one problem with it, but it wasn't actually with Better Pushback. It was with an add-on that it wasn't working with. When I say add-on, another aircraft that it didn't like it too much. So that, you know, that was a bit of a nuisance, but that has since been resolved. So Better Pushback by far is one of the best. Then the Follow Me car, which has been out for quite some time. That was by Jar Design, and the only reason that I like the Follow Me car is it does add a level of immersion when you're at an airport, especially a big international airport, and you simply choose the stand that you want to go to. You know, you've landed, you choose the stand you want to go to. The Follow Me car appears in front of you, and you just follow it, and you can follow it right to your stand. Really useful if you're not very good at reading charts. I'm okay reading charts, I haven't got a problem with that, but I do like the Follow Me car for immersion, and it's really good when you use it at night time because you've got the flashing lights of the Follow Me car. On top of that, there is another one which is called AVS, which is Airport Visual System, and which is really good because it shows you the ground layout of the airport in greater detail than the Follow Me car one does. The Follow Me car map, when you see it, is just line drawn kind of thing, whereas AVS is the layout of the airport with taxiways and links, runways, etc. And with that one, though, of course, you have to you have to know what your taxi route is, and so you can follow it on the ground surface radar, for want of a better explanation. So yeah, definitely. So we've got Better Pushback, AVS, Follow Me car. Coming up next, I would say would have to be, as an add-on, Little Nav Map. There are loads of these applications around. You've got Navigraph, you've got Avelasoft, EFB. There's a couple of others which are kind of flight planning tools, etc. Little Nav Map is an absolutely monster of a program. It's a flight planning tool. It's a ground surface map. It's all sorts of things. I mean, it is huge, and it started off as a private project for somebody. I can't remember his name, unfortunately. He wanted to create something, and it's grown out of beyond all recognition. I did a video about it quite some time ago. It's still on the channel, and recently I had a look. It's had 17,000 views on that video. It's a very popular video, proving that little nav map itself is really quite popular as well to watch. So in terms of add-ons, I'd say that was it. There's quite a lot more, but those are the ones that I really like. In terms of what aircraft, which are also add-ons, I would say, this is going to be really hard, because if I tell you all the add-ons aircraft that I like and said to you go and buy it, it would cost you a fortune. So, but I'm going to tell you anyway. So the Flight Factor 757, 767, right up at the top. Excellent aircraft. The tallest A319 and A321. Is it A321 or A320? A321 from Taulis, and the A19 from Taulis. Absolutely brilliant, right? Those four aircraft. The 737-200 Classic from IXEG. Superb aircraft. Absolutely brilliant. The JAR Design A320 and A330. I really like the A330 from JAR Design. Brilliant. The JAR Design A320 might be a little bit behind the Taulis Airbus, but still very, very good. And then finally, the latest one out of the gate, so to speak, is the INI build A300. Superb. Those are airliners. I mean, there's a whole load of more as well. There's like the FlyJ Sim 727, the FlyJ Sim, I think 737 as well. There's just a slew of fantastic aircraft, and that's before we even look at some of the general aviation aircraft that are available free or even pay. Where the oh gosh, I can't remember the name. I'm trying to think of it. It's a Cessna. It's not just Sim. I can't remember. A really, really good Cessna as well. Oh gosh, it will come to me, or I will look for it and let you know. Right. So MPLO Aviation is asking, do you think that the default roads could be improved? Yeah, I suppose so, but it depends when you say improved in what way? In the way they look, or the way they are drawn? When I say the way they're drawn, I mean you don't get nice bends in the road. They're a bit like yes, they could be improved, but when you use Orbex and you use the roads, yeah, the difference between their roads and X-Plane's roads are quite significant, and so look way better. The one thing that I really wish X-Plane 11 did better, and that is road traffic. Now, I don't know if any of you had X-Plane 10, but in X-Plane 10, the amount of traffic was on the roads. You had control over the amount of traffic. They had like 5 settings. It was like San Francisco, busy city, urban, and something like that. I can't remember. But the traffic built up over time. Yeah. So whichever one you chose, it would build up over time to a certain amount of traffic, obviously, so if you was in a busy city, the traffic would build up until you got to the optimum amount of traffic. And I really liked it. It was vibrant, it really looked good. In X-Plane 11, for some reason, the traffic doesn't seem to be quite as pronounced. It's there, but you really have to go looking for it, kind of thing. It's not the same as it was in X-Plane 10. Now, Laminar will tell you that obviously having all that traffic causes a bit of problems in terms of loss of FPS. I'm not too sure about that. It never seemed to affect my FPS in X-Plane 10, so I'm really not quite sure about that. But, swings and roundabouts. let's have a look at a question here on the phone. Um, how much time do you devote to simming every month? That's a good question. That's a good question because if I look at my stats, I think I've got over 5,000 hours of flying, 6,000 hours of controlling because I'm also a controller on VATSIM. And before before I had my dog, and I'm being really honest here, before I had my dog, I used to I fly maybe 50% of the week, and I would control 50% of the week, um, and you know that was fine. But as soon as I got my dog, and he needs to go out, he needs to go out in the evening for a wee or a poo, or I've got to take him for a walk. My actual flying has diminished dramatically. Also, the amount of flying that I do is diminished dramatically because uh, my my hobby has become almost my work because I do a lot of reviewing and I review software and so the time that I spend actually flying has diminished. But I do fly. I fly with my buddies. We fly online, obviously on VATSIM, and we have a motto. You don't have to have a long flight for it to be enjoyable. So we can fly from Bristol to Dublin, and that will be just as enjoyable as flying from Bristol to Parma or Dubrovnik or Greece or Corfu or anywhere else. So you don't always have to have a long flight for it to be enjoyable. Three or four of you fly together and you fly, an hour's flight. That can be just as enjoyable as flying long haul to Dubai or something like that. How is Frank? Frank is brilliant. He's really good. He did have an ear infection a few weeks ago because he's got fluffy ears, but he's brilliant. He's asleep at the moment because we've had a busy few days when we was away. But he's brilliant, and thanks for asking. All right, so let's have a look at another question. Do I have a monthly budget to purchase add-ons? Good question. I don't think I have got a monthly budget. I was going to say that I'm in the lucky position that if I want something, then I'll get it. But that's not strictly true because there's one aircraft I want at the moment, and I think it's a little bit expensive. I haven't been asked to review it, so I can't get it through that. So a lot of aircraft and products, sceneries, I'm asked to review, and so that's how I get them. But I do have I don't have a monthly budget, but if I want something, I get it, plain and simple. I'm not going to be able to spend £1,000 per month because obviously, income is income. But my other hobby also takes up a lot of my money and time, and my other hobby is racing drones. You've probably seen those on things, and I've got like this little tiny thing here, this really tiny one here, which is, there's my hand, so you can see how big that one is. I mean, that was £80 alone just for that little one. But this is brilliant because I fly around the house with this and have great fun with that. And then the racing drones, the 5-inch ones, they cost anywhere between £180 to £200 if I build them myself. So yeah, it swings and roundabouts. So I've got two hobbies. I've got the racing drones, which there's a lot of cash involved in that, and then flight simming, where there's still cash involved but not as much. And I suppose leading on from that, I suppose some people might say, well, you're on YouTube, you must be making money on YouTube. I am not making any money at all on YouTube. I'm lucky if I make $10 a month on YouTube. YouTube is really, really hard. You've got to have something that people want to watch, and when I say have something that people want to watch, something really niche and clever, and then people latch onto that. Flight simulation throughout the whole world, it's estimated there's only like 250,000 flight simmers. Yeah, throughout the whole world, there's kind of an estimation. Proper flight simmers. When I say proper, people who actually do everything, that do all the flight planning, have dedicated equipment, etc., etc. How many Microsoft Flight Simulator 2020 people there are could be way more than 250,000, but they're not, in my view, not all of them. Be careful, not all of them are serious simmers. Yeah, some are, but not all. So flight simulation is very niche. You've got people like, what's his name, Frugal. Okay, Frugal did have 60,000 subscribers. I don't know what situation he's in now. Matt Davis, Bellends, he would have 60,000 subscribers, but Bellends, I think, has stopped simming now. He's gone by the wayside. And in actual fact, when I first started my channel, I think really it was me, Frugal, Bellends, and maybe a couple of others. Now you have a shed load of people streaming. You've got London Controller, you've got Chewy, there's loads of people. Captain Canada, X-Aviator, an absolute shed load of people streaming, and that's all they do. Captain Canada, I think he streams almost every night of the week. Friday night he'll get drunk on VATSIM, which I think is pretty bad personally, but that's what he wants to do. X-Aviator, he's another one. He will get drunk on a Friday night, drinking beer, flying. But I remember somebody telling me that if you wanted to grow your audience, you've got to be devoting at least 2 hours every night to live streaming. And in the past when I did it, I found it really quite stressful. I didn't enjoy it, mostly because of trolls. I did not enjoy it at all, and I just stopped. I stopped live streaming. I much prefer to produce content, create video content about products. That's the whole point of my channel, is about giving information to people. It started off actually just telling people how damn good X-Plane 10 was, but now it's about sharing information, reviewing products, making sure people see products from my perspective as a user and nothing more. The people who give me their products to review, they have no control over the contents of the videos. They don't pay me money, and I don't expect them to pay me money. And it's just me providing a service. So yeah, a bit of a rant there. I don't make any money out of YouTube, and so that doesn't help towards my monthly budget. All right, Wolfgang is here. He's from the Bavarian Alps. Hope everything's okay up there. Justin, good evening. How are you? What are your favourite destinations to fly to in X-Plane 11? Right, that's a good question. All right, so my favourite destinations are Malpensa. I do like flying into Malpensa. I love going over the Alps into Malpensa. Chambray. That's a fabulous approach, and you've really got to trust your instruments and your FMC or MCDU to get you down into Chambray. If you haven't flown there, I suggest everybody has a go. LFLB, absolutely brilliant approach. You capture the ILS at 6,000 feet, and you come in over a lake. You literally the whole length of the lake, in between mountains. It's a beautiful approach. It's fabulous in X-Plane, and I've actually seen it in MSFS 2020, and it looks really good in there. I don't know whether the aircraft are any good for doing that approach, but it looks good. That is, so those two. I like flying into Parma, and of course everybody loves flying into Innsbruck, don't they? And it's a real test, Innsbruck, of your skills, especially if you do the visual approach. or even a sort of a real test of the aircraft that you're flying to see if you can, you know, get down on the profile, so to speak. It's everybody loves Innsbruck. I tend to keep away from Heathrow for two reasons. More often than not, Heathrow is extremely busy. Extremely busy. Doesn't matter whether it's an event or not. Heathrow can be extremely busy. If you get it wrong at Heathrow, so if you miss a link or a junction or a intersection, then when I say you're in trouble, you're going to have to be taxied all around again, because it is incredibly confusing. And then the other thing is, for some reason, Heathrow attracts new pilots like moths to a flame, and new pilots at Heathrow can make it not a pleasant experience for you or the controllers. In all the years that I've been on VATSIM, as a controller, as a pilot, as a mentor in the past when I used to train ATC, I always used to say to people, especially new pilots, do not load up at Heathrow and expect to have a good time. You won't, because for a new pilot to try and fly into Heathrow or out of Heathrow, they will just get confused, they'll be bombarded with information, and they may not hear calls for them because there's so much traffic around, and it's just not a nice experience. Can you show you're behind on camera? No, plain and simple. And why would I want to? This was one of the reasons why I didn't like streaming. So yeah, I think those are some of my most favourite destinations. Kai Tak, well, it's a nice destination, but it's a heck of an approach, and if you get it wrong, then you get that wrong. Okay, so what does my wife and family think about my hobby? Good question. Good question. My wife thinks that I'm a sad individual pretending to fly or pretending to be ATC, but she indulges my hobbies. She knows that I've got hobbies. She indulges them. She knows that I'm going to spend money on things, and that is fine because she spends money on her things. She buys shoes. She buys handbags. So yeah, it's quid pro quo. As for my son-in-law is the funniest, and if Matt is still here, this will make him laugh. He knows this, but my son-in-law, he works for Rolls-Royce, okay, and he works on military aircraft engines. He is a materials engineer, although now he doesn't get his hands dirty. He is a manager of projects. His most recent projects have been the engines for the A400M. He was in charge of that, and his very recent project was the Joint Strike Fighter, the F-35. Rolls-Royce built the thrust engine and the vertical lift assembly. So my son-in-law is heavily involved in military aircraft engines. He has no interest whatsoever in aviation. He just doesn't. He's no interest at all in a plane or planes. Unlike me, he builds engines, or his team build engines, and they work on it, and that's it. He has no interest at all, which I find weird. My daughters, they just think it's dad, and they're quite happy with it. My friends, some of my friends are coming round to flight simulation, especially some of my drone racing buddies. They've seen some of my videos, my review videos, and they like them, and people say, yeah, that's what he does, so which is fine. MPLO, well done. I didn't even look at that live snow. That was an old video. I can change that almost immediately. Let's do that now. Q and A. It's amazing the number of things you forget when you start doing these things. All right, so I've changed that now, and that should come up with live Q&A. All right, thank you. Oh, hang on, what's going on here now? I need to be back. There. Let's mute that. There we go. Oh, right. So, I think I'm just gonna have a look at one more question, and then I'm gonna call it, because I've got a pile of questions here that I could use on another show, which we'll probably do, in a couple of weeks, a month or so, something like that. We'll see. Let me get here. Yeah, okay. Sim racer, flight sim, well, hi there. Force feedback needs to come to flight sims. Actually, force feedback was in flight sims. Microsoft did. Microsoft, I think, were the first company to create a force feedback joystick, etc. And it's kind of hit and miss. It doesn't really work as well as you might think. I'm trying to remember whether I ever tried force feedback. I think I did, but it was in the early days, and what you found happening was that your wrists would ache a little bit, because you was fighting the force feedback. What is better? What is better is precision made joysticks, or precision made yokes. Now, at the last RAF Cosford show, there was the honeycomb yoke, and there was another yoke, and I'm damned if I can remember the name of the company, but they had two yokes. There was two yokes. There was the honeycomb one, and there was this other one, and I can't remember who it was made by. I'll find out, and I'll put a link somewhere, else I'll talk about it on Facebook or on YouTube. Both of those were absolutely brilliant. Yeah, the honeycomb one had this real kind of strange feel to it, almost like the back of my phone case here. It had a real strange kind of feel, but was lovely. And the travel, and the pitch and roll movement were really quite good. But the other one, the one that I can't remember the name of, was way better. It was heavier. It was made out of metal. It was a fantastic unit, and it really felt as if you were turning something without force feedback. Now combine both of those with XP Realistic or VR, and you don't need to worry about force feedback at all. You really don't. I thought the two of those were absolutely amazing. Fulcrum, that's it. Thank you, Justin. The Fulcrum yoke. Google it. It is expensive, but damn, it's good. Really good. And I'll tell you something else. If you look on Facebook, no, you don't even have to look on Facebook. I'm going to show you, because I'm going to find this now whilst we're talking. What surprises me almost every time is when you get into a real aircraft is the size of the yoke in real life, right? So this is me in the Dreamliner. We'd come back. We'd returned from India. Okay, we'd come back from India, and I'd asked the captain if I could have a look in the cockpit, and he actually allowed me to get into his seat. But look at the yoke, and you look at my left hand on the yoke. Now, I would say that my hands are of average size, but look how small that yoke is. It's really quite tiny. Now, when I had my Logitech yoke, it certainly it felt bigger than that. And the honeycomb yoke, I've had hands on the honeycomb yoke, and it felt bigger than that. Let me just move that again. It felt bigger than that there. Also, the Fulcrum yoke is exactly like that. It looks exactly the same. It's absolutely beautiful. It is so well engineered. It is probably the best that I've ever laid hands on. Absolutely superb. So yeah, that If you're going to buy something and if you've got the money, then that's what you need to get. Believe me, it's absolutely superb. A cool thing I used to have was this thing called butt kicker. It went under your chair and it would turn bass into vibrate, but unfortunately it killed itself long ago. Was cool though. Yeah, butt kicker, absolutely brilliant. I think it's still in production. I'm not sure. I believe it might still be in production. Why don't we have a quick search? It's always useful to find out these things. I'm pretty sure. Bob Sidwick was the reseller in the UK. Yeah, you can still get butt kicker. There we go, butt kicker gamer 2. It's actually gone down in price. $159. Brilliant piece of kit. Yeah, but if you turned it up too loud, right? If you turned it up too loud, you would actually murder the house. Absolutely terrible. Hang on, I put it up and forgot to move myself out of the way. Okay, so let me just do this again. There we go. Butt kicker 2, right? So you can still get it. Butt kicker gamer 2, $159, which is not that much actually. I might consider buying that again, actually, because that is really good. Really adds some immersion. Really does, doesn't it? It's yeah, I remember. It was jolly good fun. In fact, Bob Sidwick used to install those into his full-size cockpits, and everybody would have great fun, you know, getting in there and feeling that as you went down the runway and you hit the lines or the lamps, the lights in the runway. You could hear boom, 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 boom. Absolutely amazing. Trimming aircraft without feeling the forces is really hard. True, yeah, of course it is. Yeah, and that unfortunately is one of the things about having a flight simulator. It's not real. We can only approximate what it might feel like to fly in a flight simulator, but yeah, it's not real. It's about as close as we can get. But things like butt kicker, force feedback, they really help. They really do help. Okay, I'm going to do one more question and then that's it. Okay, question 12 on my list is, will I ever jump across to MSFS 2020? And the short answer is no. I did install it, I got it, installed it, flew over my house, flew over the Grand Canyon, went and had a look at Mount Rushmore, and that was it. That was it. For me, it is a good sightseeing app, and that's about it. I might be being harsh. In fact, I was going to review it because we'd seen so much stuff from the people who've been given advanced copies, really, really advanced copies, but they kept showing us all the same piece of film, and I was going to review it, and I spoke to a friend of mine from flightsim.com, and I told him what I thought of it, and he said, no, he said, don't do that, he said, because you'll make yourself look stupid, because there is this and there's that, and if you walk through the jungle, you can hear all the jungle animals and da. And I said, but I don't want to walk through the jungle, I want to fly. And you know, there was also like the labels. It took me and my buddy, it took us ages to get those labels off, and then sometimes they would reappear, you know, and it was all sorts of things. The HUD display, the camera system, although apparently the camera system, when you use an Xbox controller, is supposed to be brilliant, and people use the Xbox controller to fly with. So what does that tell you? Yeah, that tells me it's nothing more than a game. It'll be interesting to see what happens in a few years' time. Let's put it that way. You know, they've hit the ground running. One thing, I will say this, the visuals are amazing, the clouds are amazing, it can look fantastic, although I must admit some parts of the UK were pretty dreadful when it came out of the box. I know the UK is supposed to have been updated. When I last looked at it, there was a UK update. I wasn't that impressed with it. And for me anyway, the type of flying I do, I fly at 32,000 feet. So all I'm really bothered about is the airport environment as I depart, and the airport environment as I come into land. That's all I'm really bothered about, because I fly at 32,000 plus feet. And when I'm up there, I'm not looking down there. And if I am looking down there, what am I going to see? I'm either going to see cloud, or I'm going to see kind of uniform landscape. So that's my view, and I'm sorry if that upsets some people, but that's my personal view. It's my personal opinion. I'm perfectly happy to own it. So there we have it. Okay, someone says that MFS 2020 is broken. Sim Racer Flight. I used to use MFS 2020, but I have gone back to XP11. Good man. I have spoken to real pilots about FFB and flight sims at force feedback, and they say the same thing, that trimming aircraft is quite hard because you can't feel the forces through the controls. Yeah, I would agree with you. End of this year for the NGX apparently. And so you're talking PMDG in 2020. Well, yeah, I think PMDG need to do a bit of work anyway on the NGX. It's looking a bit dated. So Sim Racer Flight Sim 1000, MFS 2020, FPS is broken, the planes are broken, the flight model is broken. I don't know whether is it broken since day one, or is it broken since I last had a look. I don't know, but there we have it. I got a ton more questions here that were sent in. I'm going to do those in another show. I need to try and get something to eat. It's been a long day. I'm feeling hungry, so I'm going to get something to eat. And I hope you enjoyed however long I've been on. 56 minutes, so almost an hour. I hope you found it useful and that you've learnt a little bit more about me, and also some of the questions that were asked were really spot on. Thank you very much. I hope to see you all soon. The next time I'll get my other microphone sorted out, because I hate wearing this whilst doing a live Q&A. I don't mind using this when I'm recording or anything like that. Right, yeah. Immanence. I mean, the black box simulation models look amazing in MSFS, which says a lot. I don't know. I haven't looked at them, but if you say so, you say so. What I will say, let me say this, because I've said this before many, many times. It doesn't really matter what you fly, as long as you're happy. Okay, if you're happy with it, that's all that matters. When I switched from FSX to X-Plane 10, the reason why I switched was FSX, I spent more time twiddling, fixing, tweaking, and God knows what else to be able to fly it. And so I went looking for something different. I came across X-Plane 10, and I think it was after about 3 months, I switched to X-Plane 10, and I'm glad that I did. And that's it. That's as simple as that. It doesn't matter what you fly. You could be flying Aerofly, you could be flying MFSS. I know somebody who still flies FS95. It doesn't matter what you fly, as long as you enjoy it and it gives you what you want. And if it does that, that's all that matters. All right, everybody, I'm on my way. Take care. We'll see you soon. Cheerio. Have a good evening. And if you're drinking, don't get too drunk. Drink responsibly, which is what I didn't do the other day when we was away on holiday. I had a hell of a hangover. Anyway, see you all soon. Take care. Cheerio.